Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my gaming PC on a budget build. This is actually my daily driver computer that I use every day. It just so happens to do some budget gaming on the side. So stay tuned. So, in this build I used very kind of affordable parts. I wanted this build to stay relatively inexpensive. All around, I think it cost me around 350 bucks or so at the time of building. This was probably a few months ago, so prices have changed a bit. But as you'll see here on PC Part Picker, I've gone ahead and I've put the build together again. And it looks like the total price of this build is $363.35 as of right now, and as of recording today is November 20th. Yep, November 20th, 2020. God, what a dumpster fire this year's been. So as you see based on the parts, it's pretty inexpensive. For one, I'm using a Ryzen 3 processor, Ryzen 3 3200G. It does have built-in graphics, so you can do some basic gaming with that. I'm going to be totally honest, I did get a dedicated graphics card. I have a GTX 1050, which is a really inexpensive card. You can usually find them used on eBay for something like $100 maybe. You know, it's a very inexpensive card. I didn't do it in PC Part Picker because I actually, wasn't able to find one. And I know I can enter a custom part, but I just didn't. But yeah, your graphics card, if you want a dedicated one, GTX 1050 is about $100. But at the end of the day, that 3200G does have the built-in Radeon graphics, which will be tolerable for some more simple games. You can play Grand Theft Auto 5, Minecraft, things like that, as long as you're on kind of low to medium settings. So you're not talking amazing gaming performance without a dedicated GPU, but it's super tolerable. So for this build, I chose a pretty inexpensive motherboard from a reputable company. So there were some really cheap ones, but I wanted to at least get something that was decent. So I did get an Asus board. This right here, it's the Asus Prime A320M-K. Yeah, so this board right here, it's just really inexpensive, but one of the excellent features that I really liked, and I saw, is that it had an NVMe M.2 slot for a solid-state drive. So that means really fast SSDs you can put in this. I don't know all the ins and outs. I do know there are certain specifications and other things, but basically what it comes down to for you is you can really easily just slot it in SSD, and it's not a huge deal. Moving on, for this system, I chose some pretty basic RAM. Now, it's a little iffy. I mean, really, with Ryzen, you should be using faster speed RAM. In this case, 3200 megahertz, it's fine. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I bought this exact kit. I think I bought a 2666 kit, which I haven't noticed like a performance issue or anything, but I'm sure with 3200 megahertz my system would be even faster. So one thing with Ryzen, just make sure you get fast RAM. It just makes a huge difference as far as I know from what other tech tubers have put out. But yeah, just a kit of 16 gigs of RAM. It's not too expensive. It's about 70 bucks. What I did, I just bought one 8 gig stick, and when I got my next paycheck I just bought another 8 gig stick, same kind and everything, and put it in. One of the drawbacks of this motherboard is that it's actually only got 2 slots for RAM, 2 DDR4 slots. So, I mean, it's kind of a drawback, realistically, for what I do with it, just being a budget gaming rig. 16 gigs of RAM, it's going to be fine. And I think you could probably do 32 if you buy 2 16 gig sticks, but it's fine for what I do. Moving on. Our solid state drive. So this solid state drive right here, it's nothing super fancy. It's just a Western Digital Blue. It's an SN550, 250 gig M.2 SSD. Nothing really to write home about. It's a decently fast SSD. I'm running Linux Mint. Takes maybe 5 seconds to boot up. I don't know. The difference between this and a SATA SSD to me is nominal. Like, it's not something that I'm gonna notice in day to day, but yeah, this is nice. And then one thing I've gone ahead and done is I had a couple of old hard drives laying around. I put those in my computer. Those are kind of where I store my games. So 250 gig SSD, probably put a game or two depending on what game it is. Maybe ones you play more frequently, you'd throw on the SSD. And then all the rest you can throw on the hard drive. But that would be an added expense. Hard drives, like a 1 terabyte drive, I think runs about 40-50 bucks. So your mileage may vary, but yeah, if you don't have one laying around and you want some extra space, just grab yourself a 1 terabyte hard drive. On to the case. this is definitely part of where I cheaped out on this build. I wanted to get decent parts, but at the end of the day, the case is kind of where I skimped. It's a pretty inexpensive case. It's about a $50 case. It's the Thermaltake Versa H15. It's a micro ITX mid-tower. So I like the size of it. You know, I'm a huge fan of mid-tower cases. I really don't like big cases, you know, especially since I set my PC on my desk, but yeah, it's an alright case. Like, it's doable. It's a cheap case, you know. The front panel's not very nice. There's nothing super fancy about it. It does have a USB 2 and a USB 3 port on the front, power button, reset, mic in, headphone in. So, very basic case, and it does have one fan that comes with it that I believe exhausts out the back. So, nothing super fancy. It does come with a dust filter underneath the PSU, which I guess is nice, but really every cheap case has that, so it's not that much of a feature, but it's a decent case for the money from Thermaltake. But if you got an extra 20 bucks, I'd highly recommend getting something like an NZXT H510. It's just a lot nicer case with tempered glass for an extra 20 bucks. But when I was building this PC, I was really trying to build it on a budget, really trying to skimp, and you know, I had about 300 bucks to spend, so I was already pushing that budget a little bit. But it is amazing how much computer you can get for 350 bucks. So, and last but not least, for parts I had to purchase the power supply. So once again, I kind of skimped on this, but power supplies, you'll hear everyone say it, it's really important. Don't get a super cheap one. So I got an okay one, right? It's from a reputable brand, same brand that makes the case, Thermaltake. It's their Thermaltake Smart 430 watt. Since it's just a Ryzen 3 processor and you know, GTX 1050, I can get away with 330 watt PSU. Realistically, if I put, you know, a beefier graphics card in here, I'll probably have to get a new PSU, but it's a relatively inexpensive power supply. It's 43 bucks. It's 80 plus certified, so it's got some efficiency to it. Now, it's not going to be as good as, you know, even a $60 or $70 power supply, but for what I'm doing, it's fine. A lot of this build is just kind of out of necessity. It was sort of, you know, I needed a computer because at the time I was running like a Goodwill store computer. So I bought, you know, I went to a Goodwill, paid $25, and it had like a second generation Core i3 or something like that in it. And that was totally fine, but couldn't put a GPU in it just based on the case and a bunch of other things, and it's a very mediocre computer. So I ponied up 300 bucks and was like, you know, I'll build myself a system. And you know, this is kind of what I came out with. You know, overall, it's not a bad build for, you know, 365 bucks, depending on, you know, when you're buying the parts and etc. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a great computer. One thing just to keep in mind, if you're kind of like your typical gamer, you will probably want to install Windows on it. So you'll have to get a license key for that. So if you buy it from Microsoft, it's like 120 bucks for a license key. Yeah, for me, I'm just running Linux Mint. It seems to be running super well for me. I've had almost no issues with Mint. I have had some graphical driver things with my NVIDIA GPU a couple of times, but nothing that was, you know, an issue. Usually just, you know, driver update and a reboot, and it was working again. So yeah, this is my super cheap budget gaming PC. 350 bucks or so gets you, you know, a totally usable computer for some basic gaming. It's absolutely fine when it comes to regular productivity. If you're doing everything in a web browser, this is still overkill. So yeah, it's a super solid computer for the money, and no gripes with it. Took me about 2 hours to build it. I made a rookie mistake of putting in all the standoffs, even though the motherboard didn't use all the standoffs. So it actually wouldn't post for me, because it turned out one of the standoffs were shorting a trace on the motherboard. So that took me a while to troubleshoot, actually a couple of days. But you want to know what else takes a lot of troubleshooting? B-roll. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to tell me what to do in the next video, feel free to drop a comment down in the comment section below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But for now, peace.